Hello and welcome. This is the All 12 Signs video series for Saturn going direct in Pisces that happened today, the 4th of November 2023. I will be reading for Scorpio in this video. My name's Chloe. I work with card divination, astrology, and I channel energies through my body. As you can see, my hands are moving around right now. This is independent of my conscious thought, just one of the ways that I channel, drawing in energies from different dimensions to help us heal, help us clear stuck energy, and open up portals to source to get us more in alignment with our soul's frequency. Right, for those of you who know your time of birth, I recommend you check out the sign that falls in the first house. This is your rising sign, your ascendant. All the signs will be linked into them being in the first house, so the astrology will link in that way. However, this does not invalidate you looking at any other part of your chart, your sun, your moon, your Saturn, because we're dealing with the Saturn transit. Just look to where that sign falls in your natal chart. Look to the house that it's in, the themes of that house, and apply those themes to the messages that come through. Right, I'm going to leave this short and I'm going to kickstart with Scorpio. Scorpio rising. How you doing, Scorpio? For those of you tapping into the Scorpio energy and it doesn't fall in your first house, look to the house that it does fall in, the themes of that house, and apply those themes to the messages that come through. It's as if that Scorpio energy, with all the connotations of your natal chart, planets, astrological points, themes of that house, have now moved to the first house. So take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Right, regardless of whether Scorpio is your rising sign or not. Scorpio and Pisces, you are both water signs. So this is a trine, aspect of a trine, which is ruled by Jupiter. So a trine wants to bring elevation, expansion, or wisdom. And with that wisdom, we get an innate sense of confidence. There's an ease, there's a flow, more opportunities, a sense of abundance, a sense of luck can come in with a trine. Why is that? Well, trines, you have two out of the three main things in common, right? So you're both yin energies, yin night energies. You're both water signs, so that's two out of the three, but your modalities are different. Scorpio, you are fixed. Pisces is mutable. So there's a lot of common denominators, which means the information transfer is a lot easier, right? So you're then able, with those two baselines covered, able to elevate and bring expansion and elevation because you're working with two different modalities, so two different ways of doing things. So it's a very harmonious aspect. It's a soft aspect. It's ruled by a benefic. So this transit, even though it's Saturn, has an elevated flow to it. That doesn't mean that there aren't difficult things, because Saturn can often bring certain restrictions and limitations and frustrations, but it's all saying that this overall transit is helping facilitate an innate sense of flow and wisdom and expansion. Opportunities can come up even if they are linked into sort of more responsibility and duty, right? So Saturn has been retrograde since the 17th of June, speaking of which I am pulling cards for three piles. The first pile is summing up that retrograde phase. The second pile is the energy that's being downloaded today when Saturn went station direct. And so the way that I look at transits, they're downloading this narrative in our energetic field that we then unravel and unfold moving forwards. This can often be events that happen on those days that are like sort of reflections of what's going on, what's completed, what's moving forward, as well as the download itself that will unfold. This third and final part is how all of this energy is going to manifest moving forward. So even though Saturn's direct, it's still moving through the third part of the retrograde cycle. So with planets, the first part of the cycle is when they're direct but going over the degrees they're going to retrograde over. The second part of the cycle is the retrograde itself that we've just gone through. And then the third cycle is that planet moving direct over the degrees it already retrograded over. It's not going to be until the 7th of February that Saturn moves beyond the retrograde phase. So this is instigating a new cycle moving forwards, and it's often we don't necessarily see everything fully materialize of everything that we've learned during the retrograde phase until the planet moves beyond that cycle. So that's the 7th of February. But Saturn can come along. Okay, right. speaking of Saturn, there's a link in the description box to the playlist of Saturn, and there are 2 Saturn in Pisces retrograde series. The first one was when Saturn ingressed into Pisces, and in each of the introductions for all of the signs, I break down bigger themes. So Saturn in Pisces, Saturn with Neptune, Saturn linked to Jupiter, because Jupiter traditionally rules Pisces, as well as other themes. So if you want more of an in-depth understanding of what Saturn is in this sign, what's it all about, do go check that out. And then the second series was for the retrograde. So you might want to go revisit that. Again, in some of the introductions, I bring out major themes. There was one that was a really beautiful one. I can't remember which sign it was in. I should go back and then list them in those description boxes. Was linked into the id, the superego, and the ego itself, and the combination of what that all means, because Saturn's in Pisces, right? The collective emotional unconscious space for us all collectively. So you might want to go and reflect back on what that retrograde looked like and what sort of energy was showing up in those readings. So as I said, right, so Saturn, when it was direct in that first part of the cycle, may have brought up some limitations, some frustrations, and some questionings of authority, right? I find Saturn transits can often bring authority into your life that is causing you to then work with your own authority and give a stronger sense of integrity in the way that you reflect authority internally and externally. The retrograde phase had us looking over and going over whatever difficulties and limitations and frustrations, or a stronger sense of legacy and what you're committing to may have shown up with that direct motion. With the retrograde, we are reflecting, we are going inwards, we are contemplating. It can stress test your commitment to your legacy. It can have you just really sort of being mindful of, like, what are you going to commit to moving forwards. And now we have that direct motion where we're going to be more active, we're going to be implementing and putting more everything that we've learned into action in those areas that got flagged in the first part of the cycle. So what does Saturn represent? Well, for me, the key words are legacy and integrity. Saturn will come along and can disrupt parts of your life. It stress tests your foundations in order to knock down the foundations that weren't going to last the test of time, because Saturn is the lord of karma, cause and effect. There's a sense of duty and responsibility with Saturn, of structures and systems wanting to be put into place in order to facilitate a longer term cycle. Remember, Saturn takes 30 years to move through the zodiac, so we're not going to have Saturn in Pisces again for another 30 years. So whatever's going on with Saturn at the moment is helping set up a new foundational structure in wherever it falls in your chart. For the long term. There can be a heaviness with Saturn. So when Saturn went retrograde, this is when the submarine imploded in the ocean, right? So Pisces linked into the ocean, Saturn linked into duty, responsibility, cause and effect. That submarine imploded had lots of health and safety, lots of checks and balances done, reports made in the couple of years leading up to that incident, and none of the things were really implemented. So that was kind of highlighting, like, if you don't do the right thing, if you don't make sure you've got your systems and your foundations in place, then things are going to fall apart. It was also a reflection on the fact that if we go playing around in areas that we don't know much about, we know less about the ocean than we do about space, and that we're not mindful, and that we're not respectful, and we're not responsible in those areas, then difficulties may happen. And so if you link that into the unconscious mind that we've potentially been navigating and being a pilgrim in, that's one of the cards that came up, that if we've perhaps not taken care of ourselves, not being responsible to ourselves, that we may have got a little lost along the way. Saturn now moving direct, if you have faced any of that, is going to be helping implement, whether you're conscious of it or not, better structures to be able to deal with whatever problems have come up. So for Scorpio rising, where is this happening? This is happening in your 5th house. This is your house of joy. So this is your creation energy and everything that stems from that, and that is sort of the pleasure principle, where we find our joy, games, amusement, play. It's linked into children, actual children, your own children, children that you work with. Children is in creative things you birth into the world. And that just doesn't have to be like arts and music. That's absolutely anything that you put your own creative individual slant onto. It's also the inner child as well. So this is the house of joy, and Saturn being in the house of joy, well, joy isn't necessarily the word you'd link into Saturn. It also rules the metal the metal lead, which I meant to mention when I was talking about the submarine, because there's a weight to Saturn, right? There's the weight of the ocean, you know, and I say all this respectively of the lives that are lost. It was a very strong metaphor for us all at the time. And so that's so often we live in multidimensional aspects of self, of being messages and vessels for bigger pictures, whether that's on a personal level or on a collective level. It's always fascinating looking at sort of famous people's charts and seeing the storyline that they're expressing being very loud in their natal chart. And it's the same with our own charts. So Saturn in the 5th house may have brought up limitations and restrictions and a sense of heaviness around your creative energy, around the things that you find joy in, and also bringing a lot of duty and responsibility to whatever creative outlets you have, right? And also all those things about children. It's also romance and short-term dating as well, that pleasure principle in relation to that, but also the pleasure you find in every single moment, right? It's not just linked into romance. So there may have been some restrictions, some limitations. You may have had to have some more responsibilities and more duties. There may have been some heaviness around these things that you've had to navigate and work out. Well, what does this all mean to me? Right, as I said, Saturn comes along to help you get more responsible in and in alignment with your own integrity and your own legacy, right? So when we walk from integrity, when we don't question our actions, right? So that's basically when we are as comfortable as we can be with our own innate sense of truth, and then we act on it, right? And then that forms this vibrational frequency that strengthens our legacy. Legacy is such a strong word with Saturn. You see it again in natal charts. It's very, very loud. That Saturn really wants you to be able to navigate this existence, and it's serving not only this one, but the next and the next and the next and the next. So whatever you're learning here is facilitating future incarnations. So as I said, this retrograde, you may have just felt a little bit withdrawn from this area of your life, or finding it heavy, reflecting on the potential responsibilities and duties you have around this area, and navigating what it is about them that you're prepared to commit to. And so now with the direct motion, as I said, we're sort of taking more action. There's been a release point. There's been a lifting of that heaviness from that internal space. And now we're able to sort of put a bit more things into momentum, into movement forwards that is reflection of our own integrity, right? There's still responsibility, there's still duties wherever Saturn is. There's still perhaps you may have been questioning your own innate inner authority, as you may have been coming to heads with authority. It's perhaps if you have children, maybe they have been a bit more authoritarian, or if you work with them. And then if you think about your inner child, of like really Saturn moving through the 5th house is your commitment to your inner child, right? Your commitment to that foundational space of the wanting to be dutiful and responsible to your inner child. And this can be a difficult process because there's a lot of trauma around that, and obviously that can lead to a lot of neglect and neglectful behavior, that we are then operating from that space because that's what our inner child learnt. And Saturn moving through there is very much of navigating those traumas and those limiting beliefs around that. There's actually, even if though you're feeling a heaviness around your creative energy, is going to provide you a stronger foundational space of how do you find your joy, how do you express yourself creatively, with that sense of integrity moving forwards, that being the adult in the room, being the grown-up in the room for yourself, your inner child, and your ability to express yourself creatively. And this is all trining your Scorpio energy, so it's providing wisdom of your embodiment of self. It's providing a sense of structure to your creative outputs. Perhaps you may have not found structure in that, and now you're finding a bit more structure moving forwards. The weight of it isn't as heavy because we've already done a good chunk of the Saturn cycle. That you're then able to put things into practice and find systems and structures that work for you, work for your integrity, and work for your ability to find joy even though there's the heaviness, right? When Saturn was retrograde, it was bringing up tests to your commitment to your legacy, stress testing things and seeing whether you're still walking your talk, right? Pisces rules the feet. Are you going to walk your talk? And so there's a, as I said, back to that embodiment of self, of finding that wisdom, finding that responsibility in who you are and how you exhibit that in the way that you express yourself creatively. There may have been some release of some karmic traumas around creation energy, around the pleasure principle. Excuse me, guys. I can't not do this. There may have been some release points that were now moving forward. You're letting go a lot of old baggage, basically. As I said, those foundational structures that weren't going to last the test of time, that weren't going to facilitate your maturity in yourself, and the discipline. So there's now an instigation of that that's actually going to fuel and gives a good amount of structure to the boundlessness of Pisces, right? Being able to Saturn and Neptune being the sign of Pisces together is very much being able to give structure to the magic of the universe, of source energy, of like different realities, and being able to find a through line, right? I find Saturn in Pisces is like the lighthouse of being able to see where there is solidity, where there is something that you can lean on and breathe for a moment before heading back on your journey. It's a really allowing this open space so for me, Saturn can bring up boundaries, restrictions, and limitations, and it does so in order for you to really get to know yourself, and see whether those limitations and restrictions are going to hold court for this incarnation. And so often they can fall away. The more that you have that structure within yourself with Saturn, the more confidence you get, the less questioning you're questioning of self, because you're walking more with your own integrity. That it's actually providing a space where you can let go of a lot of boundaries and limitations, where they're simply not necessary for you to need to draw a line in the sand over, right? It's sort of those lines may have been washed away, and you're getting more to the fundamentals of self, right? And when we get to those fundamentals and that innate confidence of how we express ourselves, we're not that bothered by what the outside world is doing, because it's not touching us energetically in the same way. Like Saturn in Pisces, the emotional, unconscious, collective space is like clearing out a lot of karma that's linked into bonds that we've had collectively that have manifested in an individual form, that are actually like social conditioning and that sort of thing, can help get released at this point. And now with this direct motion is, as I said, like implementing this more action, more stronger sense of your own innate authority, that's able for you to act from a very creative space, a very life force energy, that is able to help you navigate and understand what does joy mean to you, and in a more long-term nourishing energy. Okay, so because we're dealing with Saturn being in Pisces, Jupiter traditionally rules Pisces, so we want to look to where Jupiter is, because whatever's going on with the ruler of a sign is impacting the sign that it rules. So Jupiter is over in Taurus, and so whatever's going on with Jupiter is adding a layer, a flavor to what's going on with Saturn in Pisces. And so we had originally at the beginning of the transit Jupiter in Aries, so that was linked into your work, health and routines. And now Jupiter has moved into Taurus, which is the other, right? The house of the other. This is intimate relationships, whether that's business partners, one-to-one clients, intimate friends, as well as more long-term committed romantic relationships. Jupiter moving through there. I've done a Jupiter in Taurus series if you want to go check that out, sort of the bigger themes around that one. Is providing inner wisdom and expansion right now, because it's retrograde in this area of your life, of you going inward and working out how do these relationships relate to you, and how do you relate to these relationships? What is it that you need? Who do you want to be? How are you showing up in these things? And so Jupiter provides elevation and wisdom and opportunities as well. But it also, I find with Jupiter transits, it tends to be not until after Jupiter's left that sign that you have a real embodiment of the confidence and the wisdom and the ease, I find. With Jupiter transits until afterwards, but it still is building and building and building with this transit of just finding a little bit more generosity with yourself and with those one-to-one people in your life, being able to express wisdom in those dynamics. And you may have been questioning that. It can bring up questions of faith around what relationships mean to you, and how they're witnessing, but it's calling you to always go deep within you in order to find that vast expansion of self within you that is providing elevation in the way that you're showing up for these relationships and the way that they will show up for you. And so this is feeding into your creative energy, right? Your creative life force. As I said, this can be Jupiter in the 7th, can be business partners, one-to-one clients, as well as friends. It doesn't have to be romantic energy. So it could be that there are some creative pursuits that you're able to bring into force because of a one-to-one relationship. Like maybe you've met somebody and you want to create a business together, or maybe your clients are you're providing wisdom to clients that is coming from this space of integrity around how you express your creation energy and what sort of support you're providing, and so there's a lot of strength coming in here with these planets. They are both they are both outer planets. Just noticed how like no cards have come out, so that I think the deck wants something doing with it. Whatever that may be. And so Jupiter's opposing your Scorpio energy, and so this is a reevaluation of self as well, of like understanding the other helps you understand yourself. So you're finding balance between those two while getting support from Saturn that is sort of strengthening your integrity at being able to express and communicate and act upon this maturity in regards to your creation energy, right? So we can have a lot of trauma in the 5th house linked into romance and the pleasure principle, that it feels like there's a lot of clearing out with this Jupiter Saturn combination of old traumas around one-to-one relationships, or what you get, what's showing up for you that may have had blocks in your creation energy, and the way that you connect to joy, that there's a lot of releasing happening as with Jupiter being retrograde. It's going to go direct at the end of the year, so we've still got a little while with that there's a real shift of finding peace, finding a sense of knowing, and that is allowing whatever sort of limiting beliefs around what it is that you think is available to you internally and externally is being shifted. Right, so what else did I want to say? You always want to look to where Saturn is in your chart with this Saturn transit, because this is going to add in themes around what's showing up for you for wherever Saturn is, as well as where you have Capricorn and Aquarius, because that's what traditionally Saturn rules. So again, in the same way that Jupiter is affecting Pisces, Saturn is affecting Aquarius and Capricorn with this journey. And for you, that is your Capricorn's your 3rd house of how you communicate. This is also linked into your daily day-to-day, finding meaning in the day-to-day, and also schools and learning something new for the first time, short distance travel. So you may have found there have been some through your creative energy and Saturn being in the fifth, this has provided potentially more responsibilities and duties, and a deeper understanding of how you communicate and what it is that you want from your local community, and how you're sharing that information and understanding and bringing meaning into your day-to-day after reflecting from the heaviness of something that maybe... This card has shown up for every sign so far. Wild. Finding meaning in the day-to-day, that again, that is moving through a heaviness, but is opening up space to find that joy. As I said, it's more long-term. Aquarius is in your fourth house. That's your roots and your foundations, your home, your private life. So there may have been opportunities and responsibilities around your creation energy that is providing support for your home life, as well as helping you understand how to communicate from a more integral space. There's a lot going on. I want to talk quickly about some of the astrology. So today, the 4th of today's the 4th, and I've noticed an energetic shift just in general. Went from feeling incredibly heavy to there's a lightness now. So there's this sense of Saturn moving forward and having momentum, and so there's a real energetic shift that's happening. And we've also got some nice astrology. You know, the sun is opposite Jupiter, so there's a sense of vision and clarity of who you are, and what that means in terms of the expansion of one-to-one relationships and how you communicate in an intimate way. We've also got Mercury opposite Uranus, so this is both the Scorpio Taurus axis, and Mercury opposite Uranus is having innovative, inventive ideas come through, and finding clarity and understanding of how you embody yourself, and perhaps a unique new perspective of how you engage one-to-one with people. So that's all being seeded on the 4th, which is the second pile of what's being downloaded. Right, so they've put the deck down. So I am going to, we've had the Yang Day action side of the reading, all the stimulation, all the extrovert, the go, 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 all the information. Now we're moving into the Yin Night rest side of the reading, where I'm going to soften my mind and go quiet, allowing the energies to do the energy work that they want to do. They're going to move the cards into the 3 piles that I talked about at the beginning of the video. And I call you to do the same. You just had loads of information. Let that all settle, and see what intuitive hits come up for you in relation to this, in relation to the astrology. Okay, Scorpio. So we have for the retrograde phase, like what's been going on, where you've been at, what's been happening. We've got the Two of Wands crossed by the Nine of Swords. So the Two of Wands is implied. This is a really powerful card. This is about long-term manifestation. This is about getting the lay of the land, right? Being able to sort of figuring out what's been going on, planning and getting a strong foundational base before moving forwards, right? This figure is in a very comfortable position. They're at the top of the where they live. It looks like it's a bit of a castle. They're in finery, so it's kind of acknowledging that whatever's been going on, you inherently have a strong foundational space, right? But it's just that you're adding onto that. You're being aware of this new dynamic, and there's a state of observation, right? There's a state of okay, well, what do I need to do in order to navigate this new land, in order to then start a new journey, right? This is followed by like the Three of Wands, which is instigating that new journey, and it's being crossed by the Nine of Swords. So there's this, even though this is a strong, really strong position, we've got the Nine of Swords, which is anxiety, which is like worrying about things that you can't control, worrying or just having a stack of worries that seem to overload you, and means like there's disruptive sleep, anxiety, and depression. It's very much linked into obviously hormones, especially with anxiety, of cortisol and adrenaline pumping through your body, and then you literally can't think when you're flooded with it constantly. So there seems like there's been some blocks around being able to truly just be in that observational space, right? You're inherently doing it, but there's an added layer of disruption of what's been going on, that sort of heaviness. Perhaps it's this limbo energy that's a bit unsettling, of like, oh, I'm having to navigate an environment that I'm finding difficult, or at least my mind, sword energy, is struggling to observe fully and take my step out of the worry and into the present moment, right? And be able to assess things clearly. Right? The Nine of Swords often find when we're not sleeping well and flooding with cortisol, as I said, you can't really think in a way that is serving you in the long term. And with this card, it's always hey, go look at the flowers, go try and break that framework, that mental pattern, by getting present, right? It's a very common thing out in the world now, which is amazing, of dropping down into the self, right, rather than overthinking and over worrying about all these different things. And because this is the card, it's kind of really saying I mean, I'm not surprised with Saturn retrograde. It can have you ruminating. It can have you questioning things. It can having you feel that burden, that weight, that responsibility. But what I really want you to focus on, because this may still continue moving forward, it's about an adjustment to that, to let you know this is long-term manifestation energy. So whatever's going on, and the fifth house, it can involve so many different things. This can be in relationship to relationships, that perhaps you've been in relationships that you've had to sort of reassess what they mean to you, in order to then navigate outside of navigate in a new frequency. But there's worries and fears over old limitations, old blockages around that, as well as just your ability to express your creation energy from a really healthy place. As I said, linked into children, the inner child as well. Everything that I listed feels very much summed up in this energy of whatever's being cropping up. You've been using this time to navigate a new energetic space, and you've got confidence there, but there's inherently this heaviness that's been part of that. So shift change, we have for the energy that's being downloaded today, right? The narrative, the energetic blueprint that will then start to unfold moving forwards. And so we've got the Six of Cups, we've got the Five of Swords in reverse, and we've got the Seven of Cups. I love this in combination with this because it just screams having more fun, right? Having more fun. So this is about making peace with the past. finding abundance in it, right? So if we're linking it into the anxiety, all of a sudden just a shift happening where you're no longer feeling the heaviness. This is the biggest house in the tarot. There's a sense of feeling safe and feeling secure if we're bringing in the inner child, like consciously or unconsciously being more at peace with whatever trauma's linked around that, and being able to find the lessons, the blessings, all of that, and realizing that you're now here, right? And that everything that's happened up until this point has got you to this, and finding the beauty and the abundance in that. And again, like, it's just easing some of this pain, I feel, that may have come up, that may have dragged up a lot of issues that may have been under the surface, right? Got the Five of Swords in reverse, right? The Five of Swords for me is one of the most difficult cards to look at in the tarot. It's got very jagged clouds. The face of the main figure is just looking so smug and so pleased with themselves, and they're carrying the Three of Swords, which is heartbreak, right? This is the bully and these are the victims. There's a sense of we can get trapped in both of these mentalities, right? Bullies are often bullied as children, right? Victim mentality can be a very comfortable safety net to be in, but it just represents conflict, right? Conflict of ideas, whether that's internal or external, that isn't leading anywhere, right? It's not about not being able to stand up for yourself, but this card always represents whatever's going on isn't really serving anybody, right? This figure thinks they've got all the swords, but they've actually got heartbreak. They've actually got grief, right? So and a distorted vibrational frequency. So in reverse, having sort of the download of making peace, and then this clearing out conflict, like perhaps in certain situations there has been a quickening to conflict, a quickening to feeling oppressed, to feeling like you have to be the bully in order to express yourself because you've been oppressed so much. However this card, because this card is nuanced, we're both of these things. Whatever this is like a clearing out, a finding peace, a clearing out of conflict. And a bringing in of play, of fantasy, of joy. This card for the fifth house is perfect, right? So you see the clouds in the background. It kind of represents fantasies of dreaming. Lots of different cups with lots of different things. This ability to play and think of different possibilities, get creative. I also see this very much as the channeling card, right? I believe we're all channelers and we're all healers. We're all intuitives. It's just part of the human condition, right? But it's reflected in very different ways for each of the individuals. That not only that, we've got so these are all the different possibilities of channeling. So for some of you, this may have been restrictions around your expression, your creative expression of your individual spark of spirit, and by that is intuition and channeling. If you think about the eureka phrase, this was Archimedes who had a bath and was, while was in the bath, noticed a certain level of how water moved in objects and had a eureka moment, was able to, in a state of rest, in a state of ease, be able to come up with an idea. And that's a form of channeling, like all the tech companies going out taking psychedelics in woods in order to get that eureka moment. Who was it? There was some famous scientist, I think it was linked into DNA, who had a massive psychedelic trip and was able to see the helix, the DNA helix. So it's just, I mean, psychedelics are a quick route to channeling. That, you know, having Pisces in the fifth house, there's a lot of magic, there's a lot of flukiness in Pisces. So I really like this combination. I like we're moving from the 6 to the 7 of being at peace, and then when we're at peace, we're able to dream a bit more, we're able to fantasize a bit more and be in a space of ease with that. I really like this. I really like this combination. And then how is this manifesting moving forwards? Well, we've got the Ace of Pentacles, card of the transit so far in every sign. And we've got the Chariot. So this is a new renewal, having an emotional and sort of mental. And I like we've got swords here and swords here of clearing out this, releasing that, but also this emotional connection, that Pisces. And then we've got some earth energy of saying, hey, this is going to be sort of rebuilt and renewed, a new offering of your 3D form. Right, how do you feel in the world? A renewal, a sense of refreshment. I always call this card like the the New Earth card, because there's mountains in the background representing sort of like 5D perspective, but there's all this abundance of the 3D realm. It's a combination of the two. It's what we're here to embody. So bringing in this 5D, potentially very magical energy coming in into your practical world, right? If we bring in Jupiter in Taurus, which is an earth energy, of being able to share that with others, of drawing other people in the same alignment, of this new playfulness that's coming through, this new ability to dream and hope and explore and be curious, right, and get creative. And then with the Chariot, so this is a very confident card. This is not. This is bringing in peace and playfulness and a release of conflict. And I love that the Chariot's showing up, because this is the victory card. This is the Cancer card. There's determination here. They're able to move through the world with more ease because they know the resources that they have within them. There's a confidence here. We've got this figure doesn't have any reign, so they're not controlling where they're headed. There's an acknowledgement of where you are, and where you will always be what is right for you in that moment. And rather than doubting and second guessing yourself and worrying and getting anxious and depressious, interesting, precious and depression, that this is saying that there's an innate sense of confidence, there's a movement, there's a momentum picking up, moving forwards, that is allowing you to tap into your creative energy. It's basically saying, like, these resources that are coming in, right, these download, you're then going to be able to put that into practice. You're then embodying it and moving it through in the world. Oh, they like this one a lot. Okay, right, I'm going to pull one more tarot, and I kept forgetting to do this in some of the other readings. I want one card of where Scorpio needs to focus in regards to Saturn moving direct. Like, what tool can Scorpio utilize to help manifest and facilitate this Saturn direct transit. Right, we've got the 8 of Cups, we've got the 6, 7, and then the 8. The 8 of Cups is the ability to move away from energy that may seem right. I'm jumping ahead. This is about moving away from something that feels comfortable and going on a journey to climb a mountain and get a higher perspective. However, I always reflect on these, especially with that 5th house of your creation energy and where that may be blocked, right? So a lot of our trauma responses, our limiting beliefs, come from actions that have happened in our early years that are manifestations of our natal chart, right? And soul contracts that we signed up for, that they're inherently deep within our unconscious mind. And they feel comfortable, even if they may be not nourishing, may cause addiction, neglect in yourself, in the way that you see your creative energy, as sort of this is if there are boundaries around these things, that your body thinks that they are comfortable, your emotional responses feel that they're comfortable. This is saying, bear witness to what these may be for you on a personal level, and realize that Saturn is giving you the strength and courage to go on a different journey, right? It takes practice to instigate these things, to break those cycles in your unconscious mind. It takes effort. Saturn is really good at helping you find responsibility and discipline with that, of being able to go climb this mountain and get that higher perspective, releasing anxiety and depression around whatever's going on for you, and be able to embody a higher perspective of self, right? And then open up the ability to use your creativity from that higher perspective. Okay, cool. Right, I'm going to pull some clarifiers for you, Scorpio. This is the first. Oh, this is the first light tarot. We've got emotion, control of self, and it's an 8. Oh, couldn't make that up. Couldn't make that up. Love that. Really, really, really love that. Thank you guys. I'm gonna pull one more card just because that came out pretty quickly. Right, final card from this deck for Scorpio in relation to Saturn going direct in Pisces. Oh, the deck got heavy. So it's so strange. The deck energetically feel very different sometimes, and when they're heavy and it's just like all the cards feel like they're stuck together, it's like, oh, they want to do some energy work. So let's see what's going on here.
So my head has gone straight down. It's like stretching the back of the neck.
And now just sort of opened up the heart chakra. And they've put the card over the heart chakra. Like giving, it just feels like there's an activation of strength, of being able to tend to your heart space, and be compassionate to yourself on this journey, and also help find peace in what it is that you're looking at, and peace on the journey that this emotional journey that is being called for. Okay, right, so I was going to do one more card, wasn't I? Got who may I help? So it's focusing on the head, which is making me think about this card and the internal conflict, that the mind space, that by going on this navigation, by acknowledging the journey, you are supporting your mind in the long term, right? You are able to provide peace. It's also wanting to go with this rose quartz, again the heart. So when we heal the mind, when we allow our heart to take over, and provide the vast expanse of energy that it's capable of doing, as if you are like, I often find it's really helpful for me. Like sometimes it's really hard to be responsible for yourself, like and take care of yourself in the way that you give advice to friends, family, whatever, and how you look after them. Often we neglect ourselves, right? That I find when I imagine that I am my own child, how would I want to take care of my child? What actions would I want to do that would help them flourish, understand who they are, understand sort of structure, and also freedom, right? What does that look like? That like stepping up for yourself. So that might be something that you want to do and engage in. If you might find it difficult to break out some of these patterns, is like, wait a minute, if I was my child, how would I deal with this? Like, how would I step up in this way? That might be helpful, especially with the 5th house, because we are dealing with the inner child as well as children in general, so can really help tap into that. Right, let's get a final card from the numerology deck for Scorpio for the Saturn going direct in Pisces. Right, final card. Forgiveness. Interesting. That came out, who did that came out for Capricorn, and I think it's the first time this card has ever come out in these readings, and it's such an interesting word. I feel like this is tapping into that 5 of Swords, where there's a potentiality of conflict, being the bully, being the victim, that everybody in the room needs forgiveness, right? Everybody in the room needs compassion and empathy and unconditional love. There may be allowing your inner child to forgive. My hand has just gone over my heart chakra. Creating space for that, and I think it's something that's said in AA that you don't, or it's not AA, it's the one that's for people who have had addicted parents, whatever it looks like, that it's not about needing to forgive the other person, but letting that energy go from yourself in that act of forgiveness. That there may be some lingering things deep inside that your inner child is so confused over and still hasn't been able to see the bigger picture and find peace in that, right? So it might be that you want to do some meditative practices. Maybe Saturn in Pisces, very good for salt baths. Do some cleansing, maybe do a meditation, have a salt bath, release a lot of that energy. Or just spend time allowing that to move through you. This is an never end, maybe not never, well, it is never ending really, isn't it, if you think about time, and infinity, that we're constantly peeling back the layer and finding nuances, right? Sometimes we can deal with big stuff and get a big clearing out, and then we start getting into the weeds, right? We start finding the nuances of things, of just allowing that feeling of forgiveness. Maybe you need to forgive yourself or something. There's a sense of self-flagellation with the Nine of Swords, of like, oh, what haven't I done? Have I done all the things? And that with Saturn being the fifth house, there's a lot of duty and responsibility that can take on a lot of weight. Not all of it's relevant. Not all of it's relevant. And then it's then that an emergency of needing to get everything done in a certain way, that allowing forgiveness for yourself of not matching this really high bar that you may have raised, right? It's about trying to match it, rather than I'm thinking about the Virgo new moon message, was because Virgo's, you know, that element of finding problems and things, and then fixating on the fact that there are problems rather than the joy, the creativity of exploring solutions, right? So that might be relevant to some of you. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at that, Scorpio. I hope this resonated. I really like this reading. This hit me as well. I needed to hear this. So if you did like this, don't forget to hit the like button. All interaction on the channel is greatly appreciated, and I enjoy it myself on a personal level. Be good to yourself, Scorpio. Be good to those around you, and most importantly, be well until we meet again.